Hello all, and thank you for joining today's webinar on the diseases caused by the bacterium Xylella fastidiosa. My name is Gerard Clover. I'm from the John Innes Centre, and today's webinar consists of a series of videos and presentations which will cover what Xylella is and the diseases it causes, where Xylella is found, and how the problem is being tackled by the Bridget Project. So to start, what is Xylella? And to introduce the topic, we've prepared a short video to give you an overview.
Xylella fastidiosa is a bacterium which infects plants. Plants have a network of tubes called the xylem, which carry water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves and flowers. The Xylella bacteria block these tubes, causing diseases in the plant and even death. Infected plants can show some of the following symptoms: leaf scorching, wilting, poor fruit set, and dieback. Symptoms are usually seen in midsummer and worse until autumn. Leaves may turn yellow or brown at the tips and edges, and over time growth and fruit production may be affected. In severe cases, even large trees can be killed. The damage caused by the infection can be mistaken for other causes, such as drought, frost damage, and even other diseases, so it's important to monitor plants which may be affected closely. Xylella can infect 600 species of plants. Crop plants such as grapevine, plum and blueberry, ornamental plants like lavender, olive and rosemary, and native trees such as ash, elm and oak. Some species host the disease without showing any signs of infection. The bacterium is spread by insects which feed on the xylem contents. Insects such as spittlebugs, also known as froghoppers, feed by inserting a thin probe called a stylet into the xylem. If bacteria are present, these will then be carried to other plants where the animal feeds elsewhere. Xylella can also be distributed unintentionally through the plant trade. Xylella has not been detected in the UK, and steps have been taken to reduce the likelihood of it being introduced or becoming established here. There are restrictions on the imports of plants into the UK, and the Bridget Project has been developed to enhance surveillance and preparedness for Xylella.
Just to recap on some of the most important points there. Xylella fastidiosa is a plant bacterium which colonizes and blocks the xylem tissue. Those are the vessels in the plant that conduct water from the roots to the leaves. Now, Xylella causes disease in around 600 plant species, and that host range continues to increase. And those plant species occur in approximately 80 families, a very broad host range, which includes wild flora such as ivy and shepherd's purse, ornamental plants such as lavender, hebe and rosemary, tree species including maple, magnolia, and even native trees such as oak and elm. There are at least 4 subspecies of Xylella, and these have different but overlapping host ranges. And some hosts such as almond and polygala, oleander, are susceptible to multiple subspecies. And these subspecies also vary in how well adapted they are to different environments. The greatest threat to the UK seems to be from the species, or subspecies rather, multiplex, because not only does multiplex have the broadest host range, but it also seems best adapted to temperate climates. As you will have seen on the video, the symptoms include leaf scorching, wilting, chlorosis or yellowing of the leaves, dieback of parts of the plant, poor quality fruit set, and in some hosts, plant death. Unfortunately, these symptoms can also be very easily confused with other stresses, such as frost, drought, herbicide damage, or indeed other plant diseases. And in some instances, plants can become infected and either remain symptomless or not show symptoms for an extended period. For example, in olive, symptoms may take several years to develop. Xylella is transmitted by froghoppers, also known as spittlebugs, and leafhoppers, and these feed on the xylem, the contents of the xylem, and in which the bacterium is present. The most important vector in Europe is the meadow froghopper, Philonaeus fumarius. This is one of our most common insects, and it feeds on a wide variety of herbaceous plants. And I'm sure you will have seen over the last few months the spittle that you'll see as you walk through grasses and in your garden that protects the nymphal stages in the spring. The nymph then develops into a jumping adult, the form on the right-hand side of the picture, which is much harder to spot, but is actually one of our most common insects, as I mentioned. There are around 10 species of froghopper and 8 species of leafhopper in the UK. Most of them are native, and they don't actually cause harm to the plants themselves. The different species occupy different ecological habitats, with Philanaeus feeding on herbaceous dicotyledonous plants, Neophilanus on grasses and rushes, and Apharophora on shrubs and trees. Similarly, the leafhoppers also have different host ranges. And this group doesn't produce spittle, but they also do have the potential to transmit Xylella. Infected plants, of course, may also be imported into the UK and moved unintentionally through the plant trade, and of course via private importations. And I'll return to our current import regulations in a moment. There is no cure for the disease. There are some options to control the disease, but they're quite limited. So there are pesticides available for vector control, but as I mentioned, the insect vectors are very common and very widely distributed in the environment. There is the option of host removal, but as you've heard, the host range is very broad. So of course, neither of those options are really ideal. There is some ongoing research to develop alternative strategies, such as varietal resistance, the use of antagonistic bacterial or viral phages. But at the moment, really our most effective strategy is prevention. That is, preventing the disease from coming into the UK in the first place. There's been considerable work to regulate the movement of plants into the UK. There is a ban on the movement of all host plants from Xylella-infected areas, effectively stopping that trade. And all host plants moving in trade must have a plant passport, confirming that they've been sourced from disease-free areas before they can be moved within the European Union. You may also have heard that there was new UK legislation that came into force in April for imported plants of some of the highest risk species. And those new regulations banned the import of plants of coffee and polygala and introduced more stringent import requirements for almond, lavender, olive, oleander, and rosemary. And that included inspection and testing prior to export. However, in June, the European Commission ruled that the regulations were disproportionate and not scientifically justified, and therefore those new UK regulations are not legally enforceable. However, they do remain very good practice, and we strongly advise people in industry to follow those regulations from a voluntary perspective. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is to find Xylella in the UK, but we must be prepared to deal with any finding quickly and effectively, and the government has set out a very clear response plan. The response to a finding will depend on whether it's considered to be an interception or an outbreak. An interception occurs when the disease is found, but it is not likely to have spread to other plants. And in that instance, there will be destruction of host plants in close proximity to the finding, and further surveillance to make sure that the disease has not spread any further. An outbreak, on the other hand, is declared when the disease is found, but it is likely to have spread or may have spread. For example, where the infected plants have been there for some period of time, or there are insect vectors present on the infected plants. If an outbreak occurs, there will be destruction of host plants within a 100-meter radius and a 5-kilometer buffer zone in which there will be further surveillance, vector control, and restrictions on the movement of host plants. And those restrictions will be in place for between 1 to at least 5 years and would have a huge impact on all plant-related businesses. I'm now going to move on to where Xylella is, and again we prepared a short video to introduce the subject and to reinforce some of the points I've just covered.
The diseases caused by Xylella are not new. The disease was first reported in the USA in grapevine in the 19th century, before being found in crops such as citrus and coffee in South America. Its arrival in Europe is a new threat. Since its appearance in Italy in 2013, it has been detected in France, Spain and Portugal. The consequences have been very serious, with infection causing damage to a wide range of plants, including the destruction of thousands of hectares of olive groves in Italy. New legislation is in place to limit the spread of the disease. There are restrictions on the import of high-risk species, including coffee, olive, almond, oleander, polygala, and lavender. Species which are known to act as hosts for the bacterium must have documentation to prove they come from disease-free areas. If Xylella is found in the UK, it will be classed as an interception or an outbreak. Infection detected in an early stage and not thought to have spread is an interception, and in this case the infected plants will be destroyed. Host plants in close proximity will also be destroyed and further surveys undertaken. If the infection is thought to have spread beyond the initial infection point, then it will be classed as an outbreak. More severe containment procedures will be followed. Control measures include destruction of host plants within 100 metres, a 5-kilometre buffer zone with restricted movement of host plants for up to 5 years, and control of the insects which spread the disease. If you suspect a plant is infected with Xylella, it should be reported immediately via the Tree Alert website.
So for many years, Xylella was confined to the Americas, but more recently the disease has been spreading and has been reported in Taiwan, in Israel, in Iran, in the Middle East, and of course most recently in Europe as well. In Europe, there are areas in which the disease has become established and is being managed, such as southern Italy, Corsica, and the Balearic Islands, and other areas where the disease has been found, but the countries are still trying to eradicate the disease. In Europe, the disease was first found in 2013 in Puglia, in the southern part of Italy. The subspecies of Xylella in this instance was Pauca, and it has mainly affected olive. In 2019, a different subspecies, multiplex, was found on ornamental and native plants in Tuscany and further north in Italy. In 2015 and 2016, the disease was found in Corsica and southern France, mainly the subspecies multiplex on ornamental plants, though there's also been one report of the subspecies Pauca on olive. In 2016 and 2017, it was found on the Balearic Islands, and in this case, 3 subspecies have been detected: Fastidiosa, multiplex, and Pauca. The disease has been found on crop plants such as almond and cherry, and in ornamental plants. In 2017, the subspecies multiplex was found in mainland Spain in almond orchards, and in 2018, the same subspecies multiplex was found infecting lavender in Portugal. Xylella causes different symptoms on different hosts, and therefore the diseases caused by Xylella have been given a variety of names. For example, in the USA, Xylella has caused the decline of vineyards since the 1800s, and the disease in grapevine is named after Newton Pierce, who first described it. In citrus, the disease starts with chlorosis of the leaves, and the trees have reduced vigor and yield less fruit. On peach, the disease is called phony peach because it reduces the number and size of fruit. And in almond, the first symptoms are leaf scorching, but the tree then declines and dies. Olive quick decline syndrome is the name used to describe the decline and eventual death of olive trees that has been observed in Italy. And this gives you an indication of the range of symptoms, but if you'd like to see further images of the damage caused by Xylella on different hosts, do have a look at the EPO website at the address given in the slide. As I mentioned previously, the symptoms caused by Xylella may include leaf scorching, chlorosis, stunting, poor quality fruit set, wilting, dieback, and in some instances, plant death. And as I said, similar symptoms can be caused by abiotic stresses or other pathogens. The symptoms tend to appear in one branch or part of the crown rather than uniformly over the whole plant, and the symptoms tend to develop in midsummer and progress in severity towards the autumn. In many host plants, the development of symptoms can occur months or even years after infection, and some species may host Xylella without ever expressing symptoms. This makes early detection and surveillance for Xylella extremely difficult. Xylella has an extremely broad host range, but there are 9 plant groups that are particularly high risk, being susceptible to infection by multiple subspecies of Xylella and being most commonly infected on the continent in Europe. These plants are coffee, hebe, lavender, oleander, olive, polygala, all of the prunus species, rosemary, and Spanish broom. And for each of these, we produce leaflets describing the symptoms, and these are available on the RHS website. The disease can also affect crop plants and trees such as ash, elm, maple, oak, and plane in the wider environment. And again, there are leaflets describing these symptoms on the RHS website. Xylella has not been detected in the UK. It's very important that you bear that in mind, that we have had no reports of Xylella here in the UK. It is vital that if it does arrive here, it's reported early so that it can be controlled and eradicated. However, as I mentioned, the symptoms can be very easily confused with other causes. So before reporting any suspect symptoms or symptoms that you think are suspect, do consider the following. Is the plant displaying symptoms which are typical of Xylella infection? Obviously refer to the slides that I've sent before and do look at the other sources of information I mentioned. Where has the plant come from? Are they imported from countries affected by the disease? And on the other hand, if the plant was sourced and grown in the UK, it is unlikely to be Xylella. How was the plant imported? Professional routes of importation require a combination of inspection and notification, and the plants require the correct documentation. However, if the plant was imported privately, the risk of undetected infection is likely to be higher. How long ago was the plant imported? Most infected plants will show symptoms within a few years. And finally, has this plant been recorded as being infected by Xylella in Europe? If you are still concerned, then it's important to report what you've seen. Please do not collect or send any samples though, but gather the relevant information about the infected plants together with photographs of the symptoms you've observed. There are a number of ways to report, but I suggest actually the simplest way is via the Tree Alert website, and you can see the address on your screen. There is also information on the UK Plant Health Information Portal, which describes the various reporting systems in different parts of the country. I've come to the end of my talk now, but I'd like to leave you with one last video which explains more about the Bridget project. This is a £5 million project funded by UKRI with support from DEFRA and the Scottish Government, and it's being led by the John Innes Centre with 12 research partners across the United Kingdom. The aim of the project is to enhance the UK's surveillance and response capability for Xylella. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Bridget is a collaborative project undertaking research to prevent the establishment of Xylella fastidiosa, a bacterial plant pathogen. The programme is funded by the Strategic Priorities Fund through UK Research and Innovation, with support from DEFRA and the Scottish Government. The goal of Bridget is to build UK capability to reduce the chance of Xylella being introduced into the UK and to enable us to respond appropriately should it be introduced. The project involves more than 60 scientists from 12 organisations across the UK, including entomologists, plant pathologists, ecologists, epidemiologists and social scientists. Bridget combines scientific research with public and industry engagement to build our understanding of Xylella, how it might be spread and how it could best be eradicated if it reached the UK. The research is focused on 3 areas. Development of new diagnostic capability will provide new ways of identifying the infection in plants and provide insights into where the bacterium has come from and its likely impact. A fast, reliable test is needed, as some plant hosts do not show symptoms, and any symptoms caused by Xylella are easily confused with other things. There are around 20 different species of xylem-feeding insects in the UK which could transmit the disease. We're working to understand where these insects are found, how they move in the environment, and to identify migration routes in the UK and internationally. Members of the public are helping by identifying these insects and sharing information about where they are found. Social science is being used to understand the factors that could influence how Xylella might move within the plant trade and to understand consumer purchasing decisions. Together with biological data, this information is being used to model how the disease might spread if it reaches the UK and its potential impact. To be able to respond to the threat of Xylella, we need to link the public, industry, government and researchers from different disciplines to understand the biology of the disease. The research teams are working closely with industry and government to raise awareness of the disease, to collect the information required to reduce the chance of the disease being introduced, and to enable us to respond appropriately should it arrive.